A reminder that abortion is not a sacrament of Satanism, it is not a ritual of Satanism, and there are more than two sides to consider when it comes to abortion. Today on Satansplain.
Well, it's not Satan worship, it's Satanism. It's embracing the life-enriching things which have traditionally been given the devil's name. Pride, lust, earthly success, rational self-interest, atheism, humor, nonconformity, science, a passion for living, being selective about whom we love. We don't see these as shameful sins, but empowering ideals. And we also recognize the psychological power and fun of symbolism and aesthetics, so we utilize Satan as mythology's most fitting mascot for what we're about.
Satansplain, Satanic Talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M.
Magister Bill M. here with Satansplain. Here in the United States, over the past couple of weeks, the Supreme Court of the United States, or SCOTUS as it's known by its acronym, has been in the news a lot lately. There was the overturning of Roe versus Wade. There was a case about school vouchers and religious schools in Maine. There was some high school football coach praying after a game. There was something else about a gun law in New York. And with each story, I thought, hey, I have a little rant about this I could do on Satansplain. Then another story would come out, and I think of a different approach to segue the two stories. Then there was another story and another, and some unrelated stuff I was going to talk about but didn't get around to. And so to keep this simple for now, in this episode, I'm just going to talk about Roe versus Wade and abortion and what Satanism really has to say about abortion. Before we get started, though, remember that Satansplain is a show you can listen to in many different ways. You can listen right on the website itself, satansplain.com. We're also on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and a few other places as well. You can follow the Satansplain channel on Twitter, or the page on Facebook. And if you're ever in doubt of the links, just remember satansplain.com. You can email me. bill@satansplain.com is the email address. All right, with that out of the way, first let me reiterate the point I made at the show's opening. Actually, let's first get a working definition of abortion. Perhaps we could call it the willful act of terminating a human pregnancy before it gets birthed and delivered out of the womb. In any case, I'm just going to assume you know what we're talking about here. Again, abortion is not a satanic ritual. We do have lots of different rituals in Satanism. We even have a whole entire book of examples called, conveniently enough, The Satanic Rituals. But none of our rituals involve doing something with a human fetus. Now, maybe there's some Christian out there thinking, well, abortion is killing a baby, and killing an innocent life is evil, so I say abortion is satanic, and that does make it a satanic ritual. Okay, but we're not using your definition of Satanism, where you get to throw the label on anything you religiously disapprove of. I am a Satanist, hosting a Satanism podcast for Satanists, and I am using our definition of Satanism, the explicitly spelled out philosophy and rituals that make up what we Satanists call Satanism. And again, I say, there is no ritual or sacrament in Satanism that includes abortion. I'm going to read you some excerpts and some paraphrasing now from a notice that was published to the Church of Satan website, churchofsatan.com, back in August of 2020. Here we go. A political activist group best known for punking journalists and politicians via high-profile publicity stunts has recently announced that abortion is a, quote, sacrament of Satanism, later changing the language to ritual of Satanism, and thus is protected by the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. This claim is both false and dangerous. Anyone familiar with the lunatic rantings of daytime talk show hosts during the Satanic Panic, or the more recent QAnon conspiracy theories, knows that Christians often accuse Satanists of facilitating abortions as a form of child sacrifice. It is thus ludicrous that anyone would think that associating abortion with Satanism would in any way be beneficial towards Satanists and or those supporting the right to have an abortion. I'd like to repeat that sentence. It is thus ludicrous that anyone would think that associating abortion with Satanism would in any way be beneficial towards Satanists and or those supporting the right to have an abortion. The Satanic Temple, who in 2019 unironically registered as a Christian church in order to obtain tax exemption, does not represent the religion of Satanism on any level. This is not the first time their actions have, perhaps intentionally, tried to make Satanism appear as, to cite an observation from a previous stunt in their own words, quote, foolish and irrational as we secularists view most other religions to be, unquote. This latest stunt goes beyond simple headline chasing, giving ammo to religionists who would push to enact laws restricting individual freedoms, as well as potentially putting the safety and lives of some people publicly identifying as Satanists at risk, as anti-abortion activists have been known to use violence to push their agendas in the past. And let me pause here for a moment and say, if there are any pro-lifers listening to this and thinking, well, right now we're seeing the pro-choice crowd causing vandalism and havoc in cities after the overturning of Roe versus Wade. That's true, and I'm not condoning that either, but those actions are beside the point here. So no, abortion is not a sacrament in Satanism. Skipping down to the end of the article for the sake of time here, the article further adds, the very word sacrament is primarily a Christian term meaning some sort of rite which confers a state of divine grace or some aspect of sacredness. At its most watered-down form, it can mean a sign, token, or symbol, or even an oath or solemn pledge. But to be clear, Satanism does not embrace rites, oaths, pledges, signs, or tokens which are termed sacraments. We are an explicitly carnal religion, and we embrace the profane. Therefore, even the idea of something being sacred, such as the concept of holiness, which means veneration of an object or a procedure or rite because of its association with some sort of deity or divinity, is not in use as part of our philosophical framework. Those are aspects of spiritual thinking and symbolism, and thus not elements of Satanism, our skeptical, pragmatic, materialist, individualist, atheist religion. And that's the end of the article. Now, maybe there's a fan from Kevin Solling's aforementioned political stunt group who is listening to this and saying, well, Bill, you obviously hate us, the Satanic Temple, because you're Church of Satan. You can't say abortion isn't Satanism because that's like saying Protestants are calling the Catholics not true Christians or the Catholics saying the Baptists are not true Christians. No, it is not. As I've said before, and I will say again, we are not talking about two different denominations of the same religion. I know to outsiders, especially to non-Satanists, that may look like the case. But you see, there's a religion called Satanism, and it's well established. It's fully spelled out. It's been this way for almost 60 years now. Taking the existing label, throwing out the details, and throwing in something completely different doesn't work. That's not how you get a new denomination. I can't just, let's think of something. I can't throw pots and pans out my kitchen window at strangers in the street. And when they see me and ask me what's going on, I can't say, oh, well, you see, this is a Buddhist practice. You see, I'm a Buddhist and this is my new denomination of Buddhism, which I just made up yesterday. No, it doesn't work like that. But, Bill, all religions are made up, so what's the difference? Yes, lots of things in this world are human inventions. The words you are hearing me speak right now are made up. All words are made up, but that doesn't mean you can just spell the word lamp as QRXJW. I mean, I suppose you could, but nobody would know what you're saying. Your spell checker wouldn't know what you mean. And no amount of stammering about personal freedom and fairness would make anybody take you seriously. Unless maybe you're talking to a journalist from Vice. I don't know. They might. Anyway. Okay, Bill, fine, but it's a thought that counts, and at least we're still doing good. To which I say, no, you are not. Because here and there I have been seeing news articles and tweets from pro-choice groups who are not claiming to be of some religion or another, but have been pro-choice activists for decades. And they're saying, yeah, to you people dressed up as Satanists and saying you support us, showing up at our rallies in your black robes and pentagrams and saying abortion is a sacrament, you think you're fighting on our side, and stop it? Go away. You are not helping. In fact, you are making things worse. So, we've established that Satanism does not include abortion as some kind of ritual in the religion, and we've established that throwing on black robes in public and loudly gathering in the name of Satanism to fight for abortion rights, or for any political idea for that matter, is a pretty stupid and self-defeating strategy. So I guess this begs the question, what then should Satanists be thinking or doing regarding the topic of abortion and its legalities? Well, here it becomes a political question. Several episodes back, some of you listeners may have caught this episode, I talked about Satanism and politics. Let's see if I can give a 2-minute recap on this. To recap, the Church of Satan does not hold any official set of political views. We leave that up to the individual members to decide. Why do we do this? Because it's really the only position that makes sense in our religion, Satanism. You see, Satanism is a religion where you are your own God. You are the one who matters the most in your world at the end of the day. It is a religion of self-deification. This is in direct opposition to pretty much every spiritual religion out there, not just Christianity, because pretty much all of them teach in some form or another that there's a virtue in self-sacrifice, or that you should put the needs of the collective above the individual, and we reject that. We're Satanists. However, even though we Satanists all subscribe to the same philosophy, the lives of two Satanists may be very different in many regards. I know some Satanists who are bankers and stockbrokers. I know other Satanists who are artists and musicians. I know some Satanists who are in higher tax brackets. I know others who are decidedly in lower ones, especially some of the artists. Some Satanists are parents. Some are not parents. Some are old, some are young, some are straight, some are gay, some live in the city, some live in the country. So when it comes to politics, this means not all Satanists are going to have the same priorities, and it means we're not all necessarily going to vote the same way. So as I said back in the politics episode of Satansplain, the satanic thing to do is to pursue whatever politics are in your own selfish interest. Some Satanists are going to vote for politician A. Some Satanists are going to vote for politician B. Some Satanists are fiercely apolitical and find the whole thing to be a waste of their time. Some Satanists are citizens of countries with entirely different systems of government, and maybe voting works differently, or maybe they don't even have voting in that country. Thus, it just wouldn't make any sense for the Church of Satan to say, we officially support this candidate or this political party, because we are not a collective. We are a cabal. Never mind the fact that a politician or political party getting a public endorsement from the Church of Satan wouldn't really help their public image, you know? But the choice of politics also extends to activism. There seems to be a big fetish these days for political activism. Many people, it seems, using activism as their source of identity. Now, does this mean it's inherently unsatanic to be an activist? No, of course not. Are Satanists necessarily obligated to be activists for some cause or another? Again, no. It's your life. You have to decide which battles are worth fighting, how often, and how to fight them. But Bill, if it's activism, then doesn't that sometimes take the form of helping other people, in which case it can't be selfish interest? No, it can be both. If, for example, seeing certain people around you go from a bad condition to a good condition is going to make your world and your day-to-day life a better place, then you're still driven by rational self-interest in wanting to see them get better. But now and then I see people who ask stuff like, well, what is the Church of Satan doing about women's reproductive rights? Or what is the Church of Satan doing to fight theocracy in the government? What is the Church of Satan doing about Black Lives Matter? Are you guys racist or something? What a fucking heap of loaded questions. The Church of Satan members who want to be pro-choice activists are pro-choice activists. The Church of Satan members who want to spend time fighting for secularization, fighting against church and state, fighting for the separation of church and state, well, they can go ahead and do that. They do so. The members who want to support Black Lives Matter, support Black Lives Matter. The members who decidedly don't want to be activists for something or another are not. It's that simple, folks. Again, there's no obligation for Church of Satan members to pick up a picket sign and march for this thing or another, and nor should there be. I, personally, don't support Black Lives Matter. You must be a racist, Bill. No. I reject the Black Lives Matter organization, me personally, because I've seen them explicitly admit to Marxist ideology I fundamentally reject. I think their cause is fueled by a lot of emotional propaganda and inflated statistics. I've seen $2 billion worth of damage they've done in riots in their cause, and I see more of the money that they get as an organization going to the funding of mansions than helping the communities they claim to help. But again, that's just me and my biased outlook here. I don't speak for every Church of Satan member on the issue or on any other political issue. Some other members of the Church of Satan don't see it the way I see it. Some do support Black Lives Matter. And well, those members have their own chosen battles in the arena of politics. They have their own reasons, and I have mine. As the Satanic Bible says, each person must decide for himself what his obligations are to his respective friends, family, and community. But Bill, one person can't do things alone. There's a strength in numbers, and yeah. And if there's a particular political cause you're passionate about, you can find some already existing group who does that thing and go join them in their cause, whatever it is. Are you passionate about gay rights? Well, go join an organization like GLAAD. Is it animal welfare you want to be an activist about? Okay, join the ASPCA or somebody. It's not the job of the Church of Satan itself as an organization to fight these battles on the collective level. Anyway, I'm probably repeating myself at this point in what I said in the Satanism and Politics episode. Probably went over the 2 minutes that I thought I was going to do. Anyway, when it comes to abortion and its legality, like I said, it becomes a political question. And sure enough, some Satanists are decidedly pro-choice, some are decidedly pro-life. Some say that it's a personal liberty issue and want abortion legalized for everybody. Some say no, it's killing a baby, and that goes against Satanism because of the rule of the earth we have about not harming children. And then still others say, I don't know, if I sat down and wrote a list of all the issues I care about, I don't think abortion would even make it to the first 10 pages. So needless to say, the fact that a lot of Christians are pro-life on abortion doesn't automatically mean that Satanists have to be pro-choice on abortion. Pro-choice Christians do exist. Pro-life Satanists do exist. Pro-life atheists exist for that matter. And just to clarify, pro-choice and pro-life, those are the terms that are used in this day and age describing the different positions on abortion. It's been that way now for actually a generation or two. Pro-choice people want it legal. Pro-life people are against having it legalized, and that's pretty much the position. I've seen some people online saying, oh, well, Church of Satan allows you to be either one, so that makes them pro-choice. And I was like, no, you're conflating the meaning of choice here. Yes, we let other members choose their politics, but quote-unquote pro-choice, that is a specific label that's used by the people who want abortion legalized. But anyway, more importantly, there's an even bigger satanic issue here, and that is challenging this dichotomy of pro-life versus pro-choice. Let's take a break right now, and when we come back, a look at Anton LaVey's essay titled The Third Side, The Uncomfortable Alternative.
You are listening to Satansplain, real satanic talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M. For questions, comments, and correspondence, send an email to bill@satansplain.com. I used to flip through one television station after another, disgusted by what was supposed to pass for comedy. Seeing all of those terrible, predictable comedians made me sad, and it made me shake in my seat. I thought it was the early signs of restless leg syndrome combined with clinical depression. So I went to see my doctor. It turned out that I just needed to listen to better comedy. That's when my doctor recommended The Devil's Mischief on Radio Free Satan.
The Devil's Mischief is comedy and novelty that's made for you, not for the masses. After a decade of biased research, The Devil's Mischief has been clinically proven to be effective at inducing laughter and whimsical feelings in many listeners.
I can finally laugh again.
You don't need a prescription to listen to The Devil's Mischief. You don't even need to visit a pharmacy. That's because The Devil's Mischief is not a pill. It's not a syrup. It's not a spray, a cream, or even a suppository. It's a podcast.
All I need is a connection to the internet.
To learn all you need to know to listen to The Devil's Mischief, visit the official website, devilsmischief.com.
Whether you like to listen to podcasts in your web browser, download an episode directly, or subscribe to podcasts with iTunes, The Devil's Mischief can help.
Side effects may include side-splitting, gut-busting, knee slaps, and slapstick. Some listeners have reported being in stitches, with gags, or finding it to be a riot. Do not listen to The Devil's Mischief while drinking a beverage. Ask your doctor if The Devil's Mischief is right for you.
Or don't. Why should you have to pay that stupid copay for a doctor's visit?
Listen to The Devil's Mischief on RadioFreeSatan.com.
Do satanic cults lurk in the shadows? Can memories of satanic ritual abuse be repressed? Do exorcisms really drive out demons? And are those demons always possessing Zach Baggins? I'm JD Sword, the Satanic Skeptic. Join me on The Devil in the Details as I examine these questions and more, bringing a skeptical and satanic perspective to the paranormal. The Devil in the Details, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and more.
Jetham for us. Jetham for us. Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Magister Bill M. here with Satansplain. So as I've already mentioned, abortion as we've understood it so far comes down to a political issue on legalities. The Church of Satan leaves stances like that up to the individual members to decide. But I see some people saying online, well, I'm a pro-choice Democrat, and I read somewhere on the internets that Anton LaVey was not, so I reject him. Okay. But first of all, this begs the question, did Anton LaVey even say anything in his writings about abortion, one way or another? Because we have seen some people online fall for erroneous quotes attributed to Anton LaVey. Now, we already know whatever he wrote about abortion, it wasn't part of ritual. Did he say anything else about the topic? As far as I know, there is only one writing of his where he brings up the topic of abortion at all, and that is in an essay he wrote called The Third Side, The Uncomfortable Alternative. It showed up in his second book of essays, Satan Speaks. As I said just before the break, there's been an assumption we've made through this whole talk about abortion, and it's the same assumption that almost all people make. That is, that this is a firmly two-sided issue. So I'm going to read you some excerpts from that essay, The Third Side. Here we go. There are not always, quote, two sides to every issue. That statement is a ridiculous slogan invoked by vested interests and perpetuated by minds of limited scope. In matters of significant concern, there is invariably another alternative, a third side, a satanic side. Two sides of the same coin is what most major issues are artfully constructed to be. Subsequently, the populace lives by imperceptible Hobson's choices masquerading as opposing opinions. The two uppermost points of the inverted pentagram of Satan represent the dualistic nature of all things, as all things are naturally perceived. Man has always been motivated and controlled by whatever dualistic concept is in fashion, and always will. Like it or not, it's the way things really are. Shades of gray only appear between established opposites. The essence of Satanism is in the answers and solutions evoked by the third side, the lower point, representing the sword plunged into the earth, the beard of wisdom seen on the goat within the inverted star. It is invariably a third side that is overlooked in every issue and endeavor, from abortion to gun control. The third side can be the crackpot stuff of conspiracy theories, or it can be the most logical and simple yet deliberately neglected conclusion. For example, the science of eugenics provides solutions for the issue of abortion. Satanically speaking, I am against abortion, yet I do consider a problem of overpopulation. Therefore, I advocate compulsory birth control. Unborn babies did not ask to be conceived. Once conceived, they should have loving, responsible parents, even if adoptive. A stupid, irresponsible woman should not have the right to decide what she does with her own body when in all other things her mind is being controlled by impersonal vested interests. An unborn child's father should influence the outcome of a pregnancy if it can be determined that he is more responsible than the mother. If he is stupid, insensitive, and irresponsible, he should be sterilized. Irresponsible parents, male or female, should simply be kept from conceiving children. The most vocal anti-abortion crusaders are fundamentalist Christians. Their entire plan and purpose originated with the same motivation that propagates any ethnic or religious grouping: to fill the world with more people like themselves. The women's movement favors abortion on the grounds that a woman's body is hers alone to control as she chooses. Neither advocates mandatory birth control and selective sterilization, which, as a third side, could eliminate most of the entire issue. Of course, whenever an issue becomes more important than a solution, don't expect to stumble over a third side. And I'll end the excerpt here. Now, you could certainly argue that Anton LaVey's proposal about sterilizing people is probably an unrealistic goal, even if it was some kind of mandatory sterilization that could be reversed later. There are other issues of personal liberty and government involvement that you'd have to deal with. But you get his point. The fact that you can come up with a hypothetical example at all that would render unwanted pregnancies a non-issue exposes the fallacy of thinking that there can only be two sides to the abortion issue, and the same with other hot-button topics. That doesn't mean that as a Satanist you can't necessarily take a side when there's a hot issue and a duality that grows around it, but as a Satanist I would say it's good to stop and try to look at the bigger pictures. If you find yourself wrapped up in some cause, stop and ask yourself why. Are you getting something out of it? Something besides the thrill of mob frenzy and collectivism? Making more noise than progress to a solution? It can happen. Just like all of the 9 satanic sins, lack of perspective. Satanists might fall for it now and then. Are you too wrapped up in the short-term stuff that you don't have a long-term plan? These are all things that, I say you have to consider now and then. So the next time you run into somebody who says, I read somewhere on the internet that Anton LaVey wasn't a pro-choice Democrat like me, so I reject Anton LaVey. Well, just point out to that person that when Anton LaVey wrote that opinion, it was in his essay on the topic about how humans sheepishly turn issues into false dichotomies. Go figure. And now before I abort this episode, before I leave this episode about abortion, I just want to share one little satanic anecdote. Or should I call that a satanic dote? Actually, that sounds like a good name for a podcast. Satanist telling anecdotes. Satanic dote. Maybe I should have that as a regular, feature on the show. Satanic dotes with Bill M. on Satansplain. What do you think about it? Email me, bill@satansplain.com. Anyway. About 20 to 25 years ago, I was on a Satanism forum. I think it was the one created by Radio Free Satan's original owner. And a Satanist on there was talking about the time he decided to go to an abortion rally. He himself was pro-choice. He wanted to keep abortion legal, not make it illegal. And he explained, he could have gone over to harass the people on the pro-life side of the rally, where, of course, most of the fundamentalist Christians were. Or he could have joined the pro-choicers to yell at the pro-lifers from there. But instead, this is what he did. He dressed up in his usual gothy-looking satanic clothes and attire, pentagram pendant and all that, went over and stood with the pro-life crowd and held up a sign. He didn't say anything. He didn't scream. He just stood there with the pro-life crowd and held up a sign. And what he had written on his picket sign was the following: "Stop abortion. More souls for Satan." Because, of course, most people standing there on that side were Christians who believe that unborn babies go straight to heaven when they die, thus avoiding the potential of growing up to be a sinner and having one's soul go to Christian hell after death. Did anybody there address him and his sign? Nah. They didn't say a word to him the entire time. How could they? His simple sign exposed the fact that what they were fighting for might not actually be in their religion's own best interest in the end. Did he change any minds that day? Probably not. Maybe. Maybe not. In any case, I thought his stunt was far more clever than being on the other side screaming, "Woo, Satanists for abortion." In fact, that sounds more like something a pro-lifer would do as a stunt to make the other side look bad, you know? All right, Bill, you've made some good points in this episode, but just tell me one thing. Who is this fictional person with the weird voice that you're arguing with right now? It is my satirical personification of people on the internet with demonstrably wrong views, and expressing it as a secondary character is fun, and I think helps illustrate my point. Thank you for playing, and thank you for listening. Hail Satan. Bye-bye. You have been listening to Satansplain. If you have enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and subscribe where available. For more information on the show, visit satansplain.com. And to learn more about Satanism itself, visit churchofsatan.com. This episode, copyright 2022, Magister Bill M.